And for people who are type A, usually not all, but leaders who are in the seat, right, who have gotten ambitious and climbed their way are very, they cut people off all the time. And when you're working with engineers or introverted people, neurodivergent people, they take longer to get their thoughts out. And sometimes you can actually watch them stop and close their eyes because it takes that for them to get their thoughts out. They're not trying to be slow-witted and they're not smart. They just need that time to get their process together. And then they respond to you. And then you should wait. It's hard. Wait for them to finish their thought fully through and then respond.
Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of the Journey to Legacy podcast. My name is Wayne Veldsman. Today, I interview Miss Desiree Goldey. Desiree is actually the Director of Marketing and Culture of ZRG Partners, a huge global talent agency, recruiting agency. And she's also the founder of Do Better Consulting, focused on leadership development and consulting for a lot of managers and C-suite execs inside of organizations. Our conversation today is a little bit different than a lot in the past, and so I hope you enjoyed it. We end up talking a ton about active listening, and Desiree gives some really great actionable advice, specifically how you can start to become a better listener and thus become a better leader as well. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Please let us know what you think. Let's jump right on in with Miss Desiree Goldey. Desiree, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Glad to be here.
God, I'm so glad to have you. Please kick us off. Tell everybody, what are you up to these days?
Yeah, so many things. I'm Desiree Goldey. I'm the Director of Marketing at ZRG Partners. We are a global talent advisory firm. I'm also the founder and owner of Do Better Consulting. And in the meantime, in my spare time, I am working on launching a podcast this summer called Talentless. So very exciting times over here in Desiree land. So great time, fun.
So exciting. Love it. Director of Marketing, ZRG Partners. Said you guys are global talent acquisition. What sort of talent are you?
Yeah, so talent firm, meaning that we do everything. We do executive search, we do embedded recruiting and RPO, we do interim and fractional solutions, and we do consulting like culture consulting. So all of them combined. Yeah, so end-to-end solutions, whatever you would need for talent, you can come to ZRG.
Okay, gotcha. And it focused on any specific industry?
Nope, we have all industries. We're about a 300 and something person firm. So if
Wow.
you're in an industry, you pretty much can find it with us and find someone who specializes in that.
Wow, that's great. How did you land as the director of marketing? It sounds like a pretty huge company.
Yeah.
How'd you land into that position?
Not that huge. I think we want to be huger, bigger, but yeah, I kind of fell into it. I had come from a world of wanting to be in recruiting and became a recruiter for an agency for about 4 years. And at the time, the company I worked for that recruited me out of the company I was working for was called Hub Recruiting. And Hub Recruiting was a RPO that was specifically focused on, and that means recruitment process outsourcing,
Okay.
for people that don't know. And they were focused on the tech industry, and I went to work for them as a recruiter. I quickly became a director of talent operations for them, doing all things process and systems, because my favorite thing is to fix a broken system. And then because of my background in hospitality and sales and marketing, was doing marketing for Hub. Hub got acquired by ZRG.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
so I naturally kind of fell into the ZRG moment and stayed as the director of talent operations for a while. And then, someone noticed my marketing skills and was like, do you want to come do this? And so I was at that point, we're talking to candidates and and job seekers and hiring managers had gotten a little bit wary on me, and I was glad to go back to what I actually went to school for, which was marketing.
Nice. Yeah, you took a long path a little bit to get there from,
Yeah.
we'll touch on it, but starting sort of in international sports and switching over to hospitality, consumer foods, right? All the way back to now landing back in marketing. But I'm curious, and so then you are the founder and owner of Do Better Consulting as well. What's
Yeah.
it like to, have a full-time job as director of marketing for ZRG and then running your own business at the same time?
It's insane. I will not, I do not encourage people to do it. But I have taken, I'm very picky about the clients that I work with now. And I have the ability to do that because I do have a full-time job. It's not my full-time entrepreneurial thing. So I don't have to I spend the time that I want with the clients that I want. But I also do not sleep a lot. I'm a diagnosed insomniac. So I have plenty of hours to get plenty of stuff done. So I do not encourage others to work, 16, 18 hours a day, but Desiree is that kind of worker. So that's
Wow.
kind of what happens.
Okay, so you don't encourage people to work 16, 18 hours a day. Is or
Absolutely not.
is that the only piece, or what's the reason why you mean the first thing you said is that you wouldn't encourage people to do it, to have a full-time job
No.
and a business on the side?
Listen, I'm truly a believer that, you put your whole heart into what you're doing and you do it
Sure,
well. I was
sure.
taught that from a young age. And I think that if you take entrepreneurial investments and starting something take time. They take energy. Some days you'll feel like it's the end of your life because you're not booking clients, and there's so many pieces to being a one-man show versus
Sure,
working with a company, right? Your sales, your
sure, sure.
your development, your everything. I think there are people who can do it, right? Obviously, I can. And there are people out there who do it. I just think that for your self-care, I would take one or the other. I would not.
Interesting. Okay, for self-care, take one or the other. Because you're
Yeah,
right. I mean, when you're running your own thing, especially when you're starting up, right, you
yeah,
wear all the hats.
right.
So you are sales, you are marketing, you are operations, and it can be a lot. And so
Yeah.
you recommend doing one or the other. And so, what's stopping you from cutting the ship on one or the other and taking your own advice?
Yeah, I don't know that I want to be in my own business owner as a full-time thing.
Interesting.
I think it's for some people. For me, I find it very lonely in a way. And that doesn't really work with my personality. I like to talk and I like to be part of something. And I think you just have to find out who you are along the journey
Nice.
of life, right? What works for you and what doesn't. And I don't think working for myself is the answer for me.
Nice.
I do it as a part-time thing, but it is not my full-time job. I love my full-time job. I love the company that I work for, and I get inspired by other people and their ideas. And I think the just being a founder and an owner and doing it full time would not be the best thing for me as a person. For other people, I know it works very well. For me, it felt oppressive almost every day. And it shouldn't make you feel like that.
Impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt like a huge weight. And
Yeah.
not that it doesn't when you're starting anyway, but it felt even deeper for me. And I happen to know myself pretty well. When things feel like that, I don't get energized by them. It actually starts to take away from who I am as a person. And so I had to say that this probably isn't the path for me. Whereas the work I
Interesting.
do every day, my full-time job, definitely gives me energy. And I don't mean the
Gives you
work I
energy.
do with individuals that do better. I love that work, but the sales of it, the bookkeeping of it, it was no. First of all, I hate math, Wayne. So
Yeah.
I don't want to do math. I didn't go into marketing to do math, right? I didn't, I that was not my thing at all. And even though you can have people do that in the beginning, you're not. And it was just a lot. It was just a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. It's definitely a lot. A lot of people will say that the the route to find real success as an entrepreneur, especially if you have another job if you have a little bit of funding. Let's just put it that way. Whether
Yeah,
it's, your full-time job, savings from the past, or somebody's funding your company, focus on what you're good at and what you
right.
enjoy doing, and then outsource the rest.
Yeah,
Right? You just said that, like,
absolutely.
you don't like math, right? You hate math. You hate all those pieces of the puzzle, and you'd be surprised that how many people love math,
Yeah,
right? And so think that's a pretty interesting lesson in itself, is that people, when they get going, you're going to figure out what you like and what you really don't like. If you're
absolutely.
on a path searching, for total freedom and control, focusing mostly on what you like and then outsource the
Right.
rest
And that's
could be
kind of what
the
I
best
did,
way to
Wayne. I
go.
focus on the individuals that come to me because I get them just from having a personal brand. And so I focus on that. I focus on the piece that I like. And I do outsource that accounting piece now. I can't deal with it, right? So those pieces get outsourced. I'm very picky about my clients now. And it's great. It's working for me. I
Nice.
turned 50 last year, Wayne. So
Cool.
it was a turning point for me to say, what does the next half of your life look like? And for me, it wasn't to be a founder and an owner of something big and grand. It was to do very personal passion work that I enjoy.
A personal passion work that you enjoy sounds like actually making a true difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so is that personal passion work that you enjoy the actual helping the individuals and do better, or is that the director of marketing position?
I think it's a little bit of both. I love marketing. I love the idea. I love content writing. I love writing and having a voice. I love taking other people's idea and help them get out what they're trying to say. So I do a lot of
Mm.
content writing. I love the event space. I love social media. I love all of that. That gives me energy. And then I do love working with individuals. I do love that one-on-one coaching moments and teaching them how leadership could feel to their teams. I think we get lost right now with leadership and really understanding what that means and how to lead a diverse team of individuals. And we're not taught that. We're not taught how
Mm.
to do that. We usually are an individual contributor and then we get put into a role and they're like, "Go for it,
Yeah.
sign
Yeah.
up. Go lead 8 people to do some great things, make profits for the company," but no one tells you how to get the most of those people. And those
Mm.
people that come to me are really struggling. And I
Mm.
love for them to find their way out of that. And I've
Oh,
seen some great results. And even
great.
as an individual, I see them change and personally develop as a person, never mind just leading better teams. As a person, they find fulfillment in understanding the gaps that they have in their leadership style and the strengths that they have in their leadership style and being able to use those. So I think I get the best of both worlds in both of my positions.
Nice. That's great. So it sounds like Do Better Consulting is focused mostly around leadership development.
It
I
is.
think earlier you mentioned to me a lot of managerial, like middle management,
Yeah.
developing them and how to manage and lead teams better.
It is. It's usually a middle manager who's come to me who became a middle manager out of nowhere, and is struggling to. And a lot of the time, it is salespeople because I love salespeople. I was one, and they are now leading a sales team, and they can't figure out why they're not driving actual profits, and people aren't hitting their KPIs, and they're not meeting their quotas, and it's usually not the quota, the KPI. It's something in the leadership style that's happening, or that they have this high turnover rate on their team and they can't
Oh,
figure out what's happening. And so they come to me and they're like, "What is going on?" And I'm like,
yeah,
"Well,
of
you're not
course.
being inclusive in your leadership, and you're not finding ways to take the advantage of each person on your team and use their strengths." And also work with the person on those weaknesses. They just start writing them up. Right? Like
Oh
like a
no.
writer works, right? And so you get into this, stop writing them up. How about you actually coach them through what's going on? And a lot of corporations
Interesting.
still write up is the answer. A PIP is the answer to a lot of this, right?
Oh,
Let's put them on performance. And they'll fix it because they get this write up and they know they're about to be fired. Pressure
interesting.
for 60% of the people does not work.
No,
right?
and so just to clarify, so when you mean a write-up, you mean like disciplinary
Yeah,
action,
correct.
and then a PIP is a
Perform.
performance
Yeah, it's a performance. I forget what the actual thing stands for, but
improvement plan.
the improvement plan. There you go.
Performance improvement plan. I actually just
Yeah.
learned that term the other day. Yeah, no, it's definitely not the way to go about it. I'm curious, before leaders come to you, before managers come to you, how are they realizing that they need help? Right. So anybody out there that's listening right now, whether they are an entrepreneur leading a small team that they've never done before, or they are a middle manager, how can they understand that, their problems and be willing to act on them?
Yeah, most of the time it's turnover rates. They're not keeping people in the seats. And and I would say half of the time they're working in an organization where everybody else is. Everybody else is keeping people in the seats and they're not, right? And their
Interesting.
turnover rate is super high. And they've either been told by someone like their leader that they need to fix the problem, what's going on, please go fix whatever's happening on your team. And or they're so close to getting removed from that position, they realize that they need the assistance. And I hope to get them before that happens, but a lot of the time they're at that place where they're like, I have 6 months to fix this and I don't know what's going on and I've tried everything. And, you know, and usually what they've tried is the same old, which is, like I said, putting them on these performance plans. They've, pulled people in for a one-on-one meeting and tried to figure it out in 30 minutes, those kind of things that just don't work to build a cohesive team.
Interesting. Yeah, lots of disciplinary action,
Yeah,
performance improvement
crazy.
plans. Yeah, so building a cohesive team seems like the key. And so
Yes.
what are I don't know if there are general things that you can recommend for people to try first, right? To become a better leader, to manage a better team, to have less turnover, or what are some of the tips that you give to your clients to
Yeah.
begin with?
Well, first of all, the first thing I always notice is that people aren't listening. They think
Interesting.
they are, right?
Okay.
They think they're listening to what their team wants or is saying, but they're not. Active listening is one of the hardest things to do, right? When you're talking to me, Wayne, I'm already trying to formulate the answer
Oh,
in my brain, just the way brains work, right? I'm
sure.
already ready for the next thing. I already have my answer clicking, which means I'm not listening to you. It means that I've stopped listening and my brain is now working on the answer. And it's what most leaders do. They're sitting at a meeting and so and so's explaining why their performance is so bad. And I already have the answer at the end of it. I already know what I'm going to say. I haven't listened to anything they've said, but I have the answer to why your performance is going so bad. And I have a response to what you're going to say. It's not active listening. Most people tell us what they need if we listen to them, right? I'm struggling with my phone calls because I have fear of getting on the phone, or when I'm in the field, I really cannot get to the door to the decision maker because I get stopped before I get to the decision maker and I don't know how to get around that person who's the gatekeeper. Right. Well, you just told me what your problem is, but usually my response is something like, well, you just need to figure out a way, or you need to do better at it, or, go talk to your colleagues and they'll figure it out. Most of the time, that person has some inherent thing that's holding them back from figuring out
Sure.
the solution. And as leaders, it's our job to guide that person to the solution together. Not me telling you, us coming up with the solution together that works for you and your work style and your personality. I talk a lot. I can talk to anyone. You could put me in a room and I will talk to every single person in that room in 30 minutes. It's just who I am. Most people do not work like that. So you have to figure out the personality style of the person that you're working with, listen to them and their needs, and then work on that. Then talk to them about what the strategies are to get past those things. Empathy is one of the biggest things in leadership. I talk about it all the time, and I know that I probably sound like a broken record for those who have heard me on podcasts before, but empathy is the biggest thing we are missing in leadership today because we're so worried about the outcome. We're not empathetic to the person that is talking to us. We're not empathetic that they may have things going on at home. We're not empathetic to the fact that they may be an introvert, but they're in sales. We're not empathetic to all these things that are happening in that person's world that we may associate with. We may have had those times or those moments, or we may have personal things going on at home. And then we build connection through empathy, and then we get to a good place. Yeah.
Building connection through empathy is a great piece there. And then, wow, you're saying leadership is essentially active listening, right? You
Yeah.
said understanding the personality type of the individual that you're speaking to, listening to them because they're going to tell you their problem, and then actually developing a solution together, right? Not just telling them what to do, develop the solution together, and then throw in empathy here, right? The biggest piece that's missing in leadership is so interesting. Like I absolutely love that. And so what are like some tips? You mentioned a great example of active listening of a problem in it, right? That
Yeah.
we start to formulate answers or response before we've actually heard someone is saying, right? We make these little assumptions of
Yeah.
what they're going to say before they have finished speaking. So what's a way that we can start to develop actual active listening?
Yeah. I think before you start a conversation with anyone, breath is, I know this sounds so silly, but breath is the most important tool you have in your toolbox.
Hmm.
Both of you take a breath. We're going to take a breath together, and then we're going to inhale, and then we're going to start talking. And then before I respond to whatever it is you said, I'm going to take 30 seconds of a breath, process what happens before I respond. I'm telling
30
you, it'll take
seconds.
30 whole seconds. You're going to take 30 whole seconds. 30 seconds it seems so long when it's happening, but it's a really short period of time. And in that, if you do this and you practice it enough, you can get it down to under 30 seconds. I can do it in like 10 seconds now, right? But if you take that breath and stop and pause, your brain starts processing what was said. And
Huh.
then you can formulate an intelligent, empathetic response. Most people are like, Wayne, da, 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 and the conversation just keeps going, right? Because no one's breathing and no one's actually processing anything. We're just rapidly firing. And rapid fire does not work in active listening. It's the one of the hardest things for humans to do. It's almost impossible. It's like when I teach people how to do this, it's so funny to watch them do it when we're in a session. Just stop. I just want you to stop for 30 seconds. They get frustrated, they get fidgety, they're like, it's a 30 sec. They're looking at their watch, they want the stopwatch to stop. Because now you're now putting things into that 30 seconds. I want you to do nothing for 30 seconds and then respond. It's a game changer. Now, again, once you really learn active listening and start really taking on the practice of active listening, you start to be able to do this without taking those 30 seconds. But if you're not good at it, especially if you're in like sales or marketing, because we talk a lot too, we tend to always have these ideas, and type A's like myself. We're always ready to run off the mouth. We never take time to breathe. And I've learned over time that the more that I do that, the more effective I am as a collaborator with people, a leader of people, a mentor to people, and a colleague, right? I'm a better
Wonderful.
colleague because I listened to what you said. It's just a huge thing. It's huge.
Better leader, better colleague. You're going to be a better spouse, a better
Yes.
parent if you can develop your listening abilities. And so, taking a breath before starting a conversation and taking a pause in between questions when they're asked and statements are made to think through them develop that empathy, make sure it was heard appropriately. I love all those tips. You
It's
know,
great.
you mentioned that in marketing and sales, right? A lot of people talk a ton. Thinking through sales, right? You would say active listening is important in sales, of course. How can a salesperson use active listening effectively or develop effectively without pausing for 30 seconds on a sales call?
Yeah,
Because it's
I know,
I
because
could be
it's very
wrong, but that's
difficult.
not going to work.
Well, it's not going to work on a sales call, but it does work if you're in a one-on-one with a team, with a person, direct report. But if you're on a sales call and you need to develop that active listening, what I encourage people to do is take notes. So when we're
Mm,
on a sales call or we're talking on the phone, we're still formulating that response, right? We're ready to respond with that pitch or that thing that we're trying to get
mm,
over,
mm,
whatever
mm,
they're ready
mm,
to say, I have the answer, right?
mm,
If
mm,
you
mm.
stop yourself and concentrate on taking actual notes of what that person is, and I take notes, but not everybody does. Take notes of what that person is saying. I've seen you do it, Wayne, during this conversation. If you do it, you actually start to process that information because your brain is now connecting to those notes.
Mm.
And then you can that's your taking of breath, right? You're
Sure.
taking that moment, you're writing that thing because now you actually heard them because you know, and you heard them and it's in your notes. And I've
Yeah.
done it about people's inflection of tone. I've done it
Right.
about, anything that I feel will help me respond back to that is it's the notes that I take. And it's really impressive how well it works. And I want to touch on this because I just don't want to talk about sales and marketing people. I do want to talk about the
Of course.
more introverted people as well. Active listening for them is so important because they usually have a hard time in getting their thoughts out. And if we're always ready to respond with the answer for them, we're ready. And so we tend to interrupt them because it takes them longer to get their thoughts out. You have
Mm,
to
mm,
let people complete their thoughts, and that is part of active listening. And for people who are type A, usually not all, but leaders who are in the seat, right, who have gotten ambitious and climbed their way are very they cut people off all the time. And when you're working with engineers or introverted people, neurodivergent people, they take longer to get their thoughts out. And sometimes you can actually watch them stop and close their eyes because it takes that for them to get their thoughts out. They're not trying to be slow-witted and they're not smart. They just need that time to get their process together. And then they respond to you. And then
mm.
you should wait. It's hard. Wait for them to finish their thought fully through and then respond. It's a thing. It's a whole thing.
It definitely is, and it's
Yeah.
difficult. It is for sure
Yeah, it's
difficult.
very difficult.
Um, I just want to mirror to you that how important of active listening absolutely is. I'm fortunate that I started studying communication back in high school. Went to a specialty communication school, and then college went to communication school, got a degree in communication, and day in and
Yes.
day out in marketing and sales. And all I do is I read psychology and communication books, and it's still difficult for me. And
Right.
so, anybody out there that's maybe beating themselves up that they don't find themselves being a good listener or they cut people off in conversation, they often have misunderstandings. It takes practice. Desiree, I think it's a great tip to slow down. I personally think 30 seconds is great to practice. If you find a buddy, right? Find a colleague or your spouse and then
Spouse. Your
go ahead
spouse.
and
It's great to practice on
make
your spouse.
make that a thing, right? And pause for 30 seconds, see how it goes. There is a fact that, and now I don't remember the exact timing. It's about 2 to 3 seconds. It's something pretty wild, actually, that it takes for audio to get processed fully through your ear, through your brain, and for it to be understood. It's probably closer to about 3 seconds. I need to look up this data again. Once you realize that fact, that means that if you immediately start speaking when someone has just finished, you factually did not hear the last words before you started to talk, right? Means that you made an assumption, which we have a lot of conversations, so we are pretty good at making assumptions about what somebody's going to say. But you've made the assumption. And so I love the pause, right? And so even if you just do 2 to 3 seconds, ensure that you heard the last words that somebody said. It's a great place to kickstart, just making sure it
So
was heard.
great. It changes your life.
Changes your life.
It does. It changed mine because I practice this consistently because I always feel like I have the answer. So I have to stop myself from providing the answer. I was that way
Okay.
at school too. Like I would have my hand up for, I'm always ready at the ready. So
Yeah.
this took me years to learn. I was telling you earlier, I turned 50 last year. This took me years to learn. I mean, years and years. It's taken me 20 years to get to this place where I feel like I can even talk intelligently about it as a
Yes.
practitioner because
Sure.
it is so hard to do. But if you
So
do it, it'll change.
yeah, absolutely. So you just said that it changed your life. So paint us
Yeah,
this picture from before to after and when this
yeah.
change happened. What did that look
Yeah,
like?
I think in my career, why it changed my life is because I was able to see opportunity where I didn't see it before by listening
Mm,
to people. That
mm,
worked in my sales career. It worked in recruiting. In recruiting, listening to people is 99% of the job, right?
mm,
It's listening to figure out whether they have the skill set, whether they have the interview skills, all of those things. And if you're not listening, you might miss the right candidate. You might miss that sales opportunity. And I think stopping and listening and waiting for people to finish changed how I was able to close deals. It changed my ability to close candidates because I was able to talk to them where they were at and hear their needs versus me responding with some, Desiree pitch. I was able to actually hear what they needed and respond back to that need. And it really did change my trajectory. In sales, I struggled a little bit because I'm definitely an overachiever, always wanted to hit quota, but in the beginning of my sales career, I really struggled to make quota. And I could never close a deal ever. I would get all the way to the end and never close a deal. And one of my mentors sat me down one day and was like, I don't know what you're doing, but you've got to slow down. He's like,
oh,
I've seen you on a call and it's like rapid fire. He's like, I don't even know if you know what company the people are from.
oh,
And that was the first lesson. He makes me laugh still today about that, but it made me, I had to slow down and stop and start taking breaths. And then I started reading a lot of books like you about communication styles and how people work and how the brain processes information. And that got me to the place that I am today. But it took somebody calling me out of my little bubble that I was in. And then I started closing deals,
nice.
right? Because I was able to respond to the need
Mm,
and the pain, right?
nice.
And it became a different journey for me.
By slowing down, you started to hear their needs, their pains, and that's what allowed you to actually start closing deals. And
Yeah.
how great is it that you said that, somebody pointed this out to you, right?
Yeah.
A good mentor. Earlier on, I asked you, sorry, before our call, I had asked you about a challenge that you face in your life and how you overcome it. And one of the things that you mentioned was good mentors.
Yeah.
And so what role do you think that plays? A lot of people I think are afraid to ask for help. They don't understand really what a mentor is or what it does. What role do good mentors play in sort of propelling us future?
For me, my whole existence. I don't think I would be where I'm at today without a mentor in each area or each industry that I've worked in. being able to be a great leader. It's probably why I'm so focused on leadership is because I've had some really bad ones, but I've had some really great leaders who became mentors through their ability to learn about me and then coach me to the next step in my career. And I still have all of the mentors. I still speak to them. I still have one today in the current industry that I'm in, because I believe they can guide you and know you better than your organization knows you sometimes. If they're in your organization, great. But guide you in a way that they know you well enough to be able to guide you to the next step. Uh, I I do have people who consider me their mentor, and I try to do the same for them, right? I know them intimately enough to be able to say to them, this is what are you doing, right? And they can be blunt and honest with you. And also, say, here's where I think you're strong. You may not see those things, right? We don't always see what we're really good at. And I think mentorship and mentors have the ability to be able to see that from the outside looking in and guide you in the right way. And I don't believe everybody's a mentor. Just because you really like your boss doesn't mean that he's a mentor, right? And not everybody wants to be a mentor to people either. I think that does take a special type of relationship.
Yeah, it definitely does take a special type of relationship. And you're so true, right? It's somebody that gets to know you very intimately and then provides an outside perspective that you probably aren't seeing yourself, right? You're too
Yeah.
close to the problem. Um, you're maybe not have the confidence to bring your own strengths to light. And so they can often help you with that as well. Um, Desiree, a key lesson that you shared with me was to never, you said never count yourself out, always shoot your shot. Where did that come from? Where's that lesson? There's a
Yeah.
story behind it.
I have the most nonlinear path, I think, I've worked in crazy places and done a lot of crazy things in my career, but I've always, gone out there and tried the next thing or, kind of shooting my shot at the next career thing. I think challenges are important in people's career. People are like, well, why didn't you just stay on this path? You would probably be CEO of something right now. And I'm like, I didn't really want to. It became,
Nice.
it wasn't a challenge anymore, right? The challenges provided me with fulfillment in my life. And they're like, how did you get that job? You didn't even have any experience because I was just shot. Always took a leap of faith that I knew my own self and I knew I had the ability to do it from whatever my mentors or my own belief in myself, and just went out there and said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try this thing. And I think if you don't do that, you hold yourself back from some experiences, some really great people, collaboration moments in time that you won't get back. Right. Experience, that's what life is about, experiences to me. And I think
Nice.
the more you can have those moments, the better life will be for you and the more fulfilled you'll feel. I'm not saying you're going to be happy, but I can't promise happiness. But I do think there's a fulfillment that comes from, having lots of experience and lived experience. It's a great feeling.
I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. You said challenges provide fulfillment. Fulfillment comes from experiences. You said, you can't guarantee happiness. I would make the argument. I would absolutely make that argument that, right, that keep shooting your shot and, go the nonlinear path. I also recommend to people. It's exactly what you said, right? Somebody could have said, well, Desiree, you could have been CEO by now if you had just gone the straight, narrow path. How boring would that have been?
Oh my
Man, that is
gosh.
that is what equals a midlife crisis. That
Right.
is what
Right.
equals a lot of mental health issues, and that's when after you're that CEO, well, you still don't know yourself. You still haven't
Right.
discovered what life is, who you are as a person, and then you start from ground zero
Yeah.
versus take the nonlinear path, shoot shots, try different things. You might not like it, but you never would have known if you didn't try,
Right.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, that's my whole philosophy of life. Like, I've gotten into things and I'm like, ooh, I really don't like this. And then gotten out, right? I mean,
Sure,
I know people have to pay bills and they have to do their thing. I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm telling
of
you
course.
to provide yourself with challenges maybe outside of work that make sense to you. Try the next thing. And if you don't like them, you can always step away from it. But I do believe in this very nonlinear path. I've created my career on it.
That's great. Yep. If you try something you don't like it, you can always step away. The all-linear path is amazing. And so, Desiree, right now you're helping lots of people in leadership. It's the director of marketing, right? ZRG Partners. You guys are placing tons of talent globally, all around the world. Where do you see your next, 10, 15, 20 years going? Like what
Oh,
does the
geez.
future hold for you?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure right now. And that's the total nonlinear answer for Desiree. I plan on writing a book next year. I
Right.
am launching a podcast with my friend Ashley King in the summer. I mean, I have a lot of things going on that I want to do over the next couple of years. Career-wise, if ZRG will have me, I'll probably stay here
Yeah.
for life. I do enjoy the work that I do, but I don't know is the real answer. I have projects in mind that I hope that I get to in the next 10 years, or hopefully sooner. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be whatever it is, it's going to be a ride.
Whatever it is definitely going to be a ride.
Yeah.
And projects in mind that you hope you get to in the next 10 years. Not to put you too much on the spot here, but what is your belief in projects that you hope to get to versus purposefully making
Yeah.
sure that you will get to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about intention, right? So
Yeah.
the podcast was an intention that started last year. And we've been very intentional about it, planning and process,
Right.
and it will launch this summer. That was an
Exciting.
intentional project that I was really vehemently wanted to do. I talk a lot. I love to talk to people, and it just made sense. And my partner in crime is super smart and I love her to death. And so it's a natural fit. We actually spoke at a conference last year at RecFest, and, we just enjoyed it so much. We said we have to do the podcast. So that was a very intentional moment. But I do believe there are wants and dreams, like me dying in Greece. And then then there's, then there's actual intentional projects. And I'm very much a planner and very organized and very, I have vision boards and the whole thing about where I do want to get to. And one of those is the book. The book for me is a huge intentional project that is taking me time. I've been thinking about it for about a year now. It is not in planning phase yet. It's because I want to curate the right message behind it, and then it'll go into a very intentional project plan. But the podcast has got to get launched first, and that's taking enough of my time right now.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's almost prioritizing things.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so the hope is, will there be enough time
yeah,
to get to the individual things? Because you do believe strongly in the intentionality behind it. And
absolutely.
yeah, and so then I guess you need to intentionally put a date about when you're going to move to Greece to make sure that you go die
I
there,
know.
huh?
I know. I keep telling my spouse, I'm like, I listen, here's the date.
Yeah,
We're gonna move when we're 66, and this is what's gonna happen. Yeah, so that is definitely on my intention list is to retire and move to Greece. And that is where I want to end my life. So,
that's
but that
great.
is, yeah. I
I
don't
like
think
it.
she's totally up for it, but she doesn't get a choice.
There you go. No, I actually had this conversation earlier today about intention and living purposefully, actually. And so it's interesting that you bring it up. And with the example I always like to give is that I tell a lot of people that I'm going to live to be 120 years old. And the reasoning behind it, and there's lots of different pieces of modern medicine and like just the health and wellness that I'm taking care of myself. Unless I die falling out of an airplane or crashing my mountain bike off of a cliff, I'll be live to be 120. And the biggest reason why I'm certain of it is because I am intentional about it. Is
Right.
because I know to make it there, well, what I need to do. I've
Right.
studied all the blue zones about how the oldest people in the world live, right? That they're surrounded with community and they exercise and they're watching what they eat. And so just by doing these things, setting an intention and taking action, we can pretty much guarantee almost any result. So
Yeah.
I can't guarantee I'm going to make it to 120, but I can pretty much guarantee it. So
Yeah. There you go.
yeah, exactly. So Desiree, right? So your future, we'll see what it holds. Super exciting. But so let's just talk about long term here, right? The show's theme is legacy. And so when you eventually die in Greece, right? And somebody is writing your obituary or just, on your deathbed, you're looking back. Tell me, what does legacy mean to you? And like, what is the legacy that you want to have left on this world?
Yeah, I want my legacy to be that I fought and that I fought for something. Not everything, but fought for what was right and what I thought was right. That I lived my passions out, that I lived a fulfilled life, and that I believed in something and I made people believe that I believed in something. And that is
Nice.
super important to me. I believe you can live on this earth so many ways. You can go just day by day and do your regular thing. You can just live your life and kind of be boring and static with it. I also believe there's a life that your voice is heard and that you are seen as a person who stands for something. And that's the kind of person that I want to be. I want to leave that to my children, to my sister, to my niece, to my family. If I died tomorrow, I think they would say that I stood for something, and that is super important to me.
That's wonderful. Okay, so if you died tomorrow, what are they going to say?
Yes.
What did you stand for?
I stood for I stood for the underdog. I stood up for them in times of crisis, that I fought for equal rights at any time in any place, whether in the workplace or in my personal life. And then I fought for love and family. Those would be the things. Those would be the things I think they would say.
Love and family, fought for the underdog, equality. Sounds like a pretty great legacy to me.
It sounds like
Desiree,
a great.
it's really, really great. If anybody wants to learn a little bit more about you, get involved with what you're up to, where's the best place they can go to?
Yeah, I live on LinkedIn. So if you want to find me, you can find me, Desiree Goldey, on LinkedIn. But my Instagram is at Recruiter Gold, and my website is dobetterconsulting.net. You can find me there.
And that's a wrap, everybody. What did you think? Please drop me a comment wherever you are watching this down below. Tell Desiree, what are some of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that you enjoyed that you pulled out? What I liked, as always, here is my wrap up for you all. So you talk about how leadership essentially equals active listening. Without active listening, you cannot be a good leader. It's a simple fact as that. Even through empathy in leadership, we have to be able to truly not just hear somebody, but feel what they're feeling. Be empathetic for the place that they're coming from. What else do they have going on in their life that is actually affecting their, not just their work, their performance, but it's impacting their emotion, their whole being, and then being able to lead them from where they're at, meet them where they are. She said that is literally like the biggest missing piece in leadership is actually empathy. Start with the importance of taking notes. I'm literally looking at my notes over here on the video. If you're watching, taking notes is super, super important. It can actually help you to become a better listener as well, right? Take a note, just real quick, a couple words on the most important thing somebody's talking about, and then later it'll help to jog your memory. There is actually some data and research linked to when you write things down physically, not just type them, which that's still a step in the right direction, but when you physically write something down, it makes a strange connection to the brain that allows you to remember better and clearer, remember more. So I suggest taking notes with pen and paper. Ms. Desiree recommended that we slow down. She gave this tip of pausing for 30 seconds where somebody speaks. And while I think that's a little much, it's a great starting point. I over exaggerate it in the beginning and then slowly start to narrow it down. What I like to do, this isn't something that I shared, but is I take notes and then I will tell the other party that I'm taking notes, whether it is a leadership call, coaching call, a sales call. I'll tell them, hey, I hope you don't mind if I pause. I'm taking notes to make sure I'm hearing you properly. So that allows me to listen better. It allows me to not be worried about pauses because I'm directly addressing it. Hey, I'm over here taking notes. So first off, now they know that I'm listening because I told them I'm taking notes. It makes them feel important and heard. And then also, I hope you don't mind if I pause because I am taking notes. And now they'll realize, okay, whenever they stop speaking, if I don't immediately speak, it's okay. They can pause. The silence is okay. So taking notes is really, really powerful. Then last but not least, she mentioned some things about challenges and how through challenges that actually provides us fulfillment. Through challenges, challenges come from experiences and fulfillment comes from experiences also, right? She described how she had this really non-linear path in her life and to just go out there and try things. Always shoot your shot. You never know if you're going to enjoy it or not before you try. And so Desiree recommended it. I recommended myself. Go out there and try some new things. Shoot your shot. Have the experiences. This is going to provide you with immense fulfillment in your life. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, you've been listening to the Journey to Legacy podcast, and I will see you soon.